And we are up. Okay. I'm Austin Light with American Demon Comics, and this is my good buddy Brandon Ingram with Dismay Comics. Um, we are here to discuss updates, off the wall topics, and anything that really comes to mind. How have you been doing, Brandon?
Things have been good. Like I've been working on the comics I've mentioned the past couple weeks. I'm still working on those. But a new project started up
Mm-hmm.
with me and a collective of artists, kind of like the YouTube artists, essentially. Um, I can't say too much now because we just all of this started on a live stream last Monday night, essentially at 4 a.m. But it's going good. Essentially, I wrote a script right after we had our idea and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wrote that, and now we've had a couple Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Uh, they're working on some of the concept art and stuff like that, but essentially, we're trying to get this thing done before Heroes Con next year,
Right.
because we'd like to have a booth at Heroes Con, have that there, and then any of us that have like books already, we can also bring those. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm things are going good. Things are going good.
So, can you share a booth with someone you haven't actually collaborated with?
With this specifically, it's going to be under. It's not going to be under like a Dismay Comics name or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's a collective that we're forming, essentially have formed, but officially in terms of LLC or names or anything like that, we haven't haven't released that yet. We're still deciding on that, but it'll be under that essentially. We'll just
Mm-hmm.
be the collective within that brand, kind of. It won't be a Dismay Comics thing. It'll be its own thing between me and the other artists.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. Under strict
Thank you.
NDA right now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. If it was just me, I would be Kevin Smith and just tell you everything and ruin everything for you. But since there are others involved and we are all sharing equalness in this, essentially, I don't want to do that.
I gotcha. Well, for anybody that's watching, I'm going to just let you know real quick. I'm in the middle of doing a Kickstarter, so go check that out at indie-comic.com. But essentially, I'm doing a few podcast appearances, and I'm dressed as my Diona character and my Diona persona, so I make a little bit more of an impression, and it's how I dress typically at my conventions, and for any kind of showy uh, display for my American Demon Comics brand. So that is the reason behind this. That's not to say I don't enjoy cross dressing or cosplaying or dressing up just in general, but um, for for now it has a purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so uh, you got some cool works, a cool goal for next year. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about going to Heroes Con, and I went back in 2017 with a friend. And I don't remember if I've explained this before, but he was very like, I guess, old fashioned about it. He was like, we're going to go and we're going to show some professionals and studios our portfolio, and we might catch some work or some contracts. And he had not been in like at least 10 years, and that was not at all how things were being run.
I was gonna say, I think some of them do that now, but nowadays it's just submissions pages. Either, well, it's two things. You either know someone who knows someone and you can just get linked in there, or there's submissions that you can do through a website, like through a link on a website. Like Image has one. A lot of the indie stuff have one. Marvel and DC don't really have one, so you either got to know someone, or I guess you kind of got to do the old fashioned way with them and just be like, "Hey, here I am," and they're like, "We We haven't looked at portfolios since the 90s. What are you doing?
We haven't done this in 30 years. You'll make an exception. So I do want to make it to Heroes Con again. It's very comic book driven. When I went there was really no like voice actors. Really, there was some merchandise stands, but they were very, very comic book targeted, very character and IP driven stands. But other than that, there were a bunch of artists. And go figure, the one year that I went, Kevin Stokes, my mentor and friend over at Low Mill, couldn't make it. But he's made it ever since then, I believe.
Yeah.
But I hope to go next year. I didn't have plans doing it this year. It didn't really dawn on me to like think about it or try it. But Robbie was going to go. And then I've had some people ask me if I was going to be there when I was like reaching out to see about doing some podcast appearances. And I was like, I should have probably went. But I had WeevilCon, and I really can't squish those together.
Yeah.
But
I've heard a ton of people in the comic book community, like the past 2 years, basically, they're just always talking about Heroes Con in terms of like the conventions and stuff. So I was like, okay, like I might check it out. And then like I've heard from them as well as like heard from other people that like it's like what you said. It's very much comic focused. It's a Comic-Con that's actually about comics. Go figure. Who would have ever thought of that idea? But I really want to go to it for that, as well as it just seems like that's where all the comic people flock to. And before, like I've wanted to do it, but then it's like the cost going there, the cost for tabling, cost for a hotel or Airbnb, cost of food, like all this stuff. But then this whole collective thing makes it a bit more manageable for me.
Right.
Because we'll likely get like a suite or an Airbnb, and we'll just split the cost 5 ways. That helps a ton. And then with the table, if we get, and we've talked about this, we actually talked about this a couple of days ago. If we get one artist alley table, or if we get 2 artist alley tables and kind of just get them right next to each other, and if we're able to, mush them together. If not, they're just right next to each other. But 2 artist alley tables to where we can all do it, because there's no way 4 or 5 of us can sit behind a 6-foot table. We can't do that. And then there are like the end cap tables and stuff, but I don't know. If we get 2 artist alley tables, I think that could also do well.
Yeah.
But splitting that down 5 ways, that also helps a ton. So if all goes well, I'll be at Heroes Con next year. If all goes well, we still got to book the tables, all that stuff. So yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome, man. I encourage everybody to go check out Brandon if he makes it to Heroes Con. So
if I'm there, hopefully on the ride there, because I'll probably take off a couple days before and do like a little road trip, because I've never been in South Carolina. I kind of want to check stuff out before the
oh my
con.
God, they got the windiest heckin' roads.
Oh, really? But I kind of want to just like check out, take my time on a road trip for a couple days before the con. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully on that road trip, on that little fun time, nothing happens to me, or there's no car trouble. If that's the case, then I was scheduled for Heroes Con, but life happened essentially.
Well, you can always just bring a backup. Let's see, transmission, backup, alternator, a backup belt. Well, I mean, a belt actually is one that people do bring around, I believe. But I
think the only
just
things
any number of things that could go wrong.
I think the only things I actually bring is one of those the electronic air pumps where you just plug it into the cigarette lighter, and then you plug it into the tire and it airs up by itself. That, and then jumper cables.
Nice.
So if neither of those two can fix the problem, AAA, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Well, I just got back from WeevilCon, so we're gonna try and wrap up the con talk, and it was pretty good. Not again, it was almost. It's like breaking even, and it's like if I'm gonna drive 4 hours to break even, I don't really want to do that. But it was really good exposure. I had a lot of people that were like very excited about the comic. It seems like I have more passionate people down south in Alabama about the comic, but up north I have a lot more volume, but less people so enthused about it. I don't
It's
know.
probably because because I'm basically South Alabama.
Mhm.
Like, yes, I'm Northwest Florida. I'm the state line is less than an hour away. It's like 40 minutes away. A big part probably is like we don't have cons near us, so we're not exposed to like comic creators, indie comic creators that much, or just a convention in general, to where like if one pops up, even if it's like a small one, like WeevilCon or Gamers and Geeks and Mobile, people are like ecstatic about it. It's like, oh crap,
Yeah.
like something's actually here. Like,
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
yeah, that's the plus side with this area is I don't know how much the WeevilCon tables cost and stuff, but like table costs around this area isn't that bad because it's usually small cons. And we've talked about before, but I kind of prefer a small con because I can guarantee that I'll make my money back, if not a profit. And then, yeah, like you had mentioned, people are like flocking to this stuff. Those that care about this sort of stuff, like they're very passionate in the con, kind of.
Yeah, I think I got like 2 or 3 people that read it on the spot, read it all on my website, just like it's a webtoon, and were like, "Oh, it was so good! It was so good." Now the trick is to get them to back the Kickstarter. So the con was really good. I got a full page of emails. Got more people signed up to the mailing list, and it was fun. So our hotel situation, I go to Choice Hotels and I find the cheapest one in the area and I book it. And that's what I did. I didn't read any reviews about the hotel, but it was rated at a 3-star. So I was like, 3 stars is pretty much every single one I've been at before. This should be fine. So we pull up to the hotel, and it's kind of in the woods, and there's like a road that's kind of disheveled, and there's like some torn down brick area. There's not a whole lot going down in this part of the city, and we're going down, and you take a look at the pool, and it looks all kind of caved in, and you're kind of, the parking lot is almost deserted, and you're starting to feel a little uneasy. And we go in.
Did I book a room at a place that closed down 20 years ago?
Yeah, I was pulling up to the check-in like awning, and my girlfriend was like, is this place even open? And I was like, I hope so. So I go into the check-in area and I ring the bell, and I'm looking around, and there's like this little flyer that has like these very fresh 2020 like COVID rules on it, and like this glass, and like the door to the main lobby is locked, and the lobby looks really dilapidated and like the tinted, and you're just kind of like,
did this place fall victim to COVID 4 years ago? Is everyone like COVID zombies in here?
Yeah. That's what it felt like. And nobody came the first time. So I went back out and I was like, I think we might go change hotels. But she was like, well, why don't you call them? And I was like, I I'll just go try and ring the bell because I didn't hear anything when I rung the bell. So maybe it didn't ring. So I go back in and I ring the bell. Like I push it down and I hear a little and so I'm waiting there and I heard it this time. So I was like, surely somebody's here. They're gonna come. But I start taking more of a look around and I'm like, oh God. And like the there were lights on. So I was like, this place is open. I know that this place there's computers on right now that's open. And I started looking around and the floor is crusty and dirty. The tile is not like attached to the wall like where floor bases would be. There is a massive roach on its back fiddling around trying to get up. Like it was like this big. And I was like, I'm not gonna stay here. Um Somebody had come out and they asked for my ID and I gave them the ID. And when they were going to return, I was going to be like, I'm going to go talk with my girlfriend real quick about stuff. And but when he did that, he came back and gave me the key, and I was like, oh crap. Oh, they ran it through the website, which usually doesn't happen. They usually charge my card then and there.
Yeah.
They don't charge it uh, with just through the website. And I was like, no, no. So I reluctantly take it and go back out to the car. Like, okay, we got to go to the room. And she's like reading the reviews, like, yeah, the meth lab in room 207 really disturbed the room of 107. It sounds like this is a week ago, by the way. And I was like, oh, wow. And I look at my card and it says 107 on it. So we go and we get ready. We get into the room, and I'm looking around everywhere because I hate roaches. I hate roaches, heckin' lot. And I was like looking around for any roach debris or activity, and it seemed like it was clean. There were some bug carcasses, but they weren't like clearly roaches. So I was like, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's okay. And the room was like small and um the bathroom was not well kept up, but it was clean. Like you could tell somebody at least ran some like cleaner over it and wiped it down. But I was like, I don't know about this because I had another friend that was attending the con that's a vendor for horror stuff, and he was going to stay the night, and he did. And
At y'all's
it wasn't all
hotel?
that bad, huh?
At y'all's hotel?
Yeah.
What was
Um,
his reaction when he got there?
he was like, I've been homeless before. I'm
Oh, okay.
fine. But which, which changed the next morning. Um, through the night, we slept okay. He had to sleep in a little chair. There was no fold out. There was no extra
They
bed.
didn't
It
have
was
cots or anything?
no.
Wow.
So he slept on a chair again. He was like, I was been homeless before. This is no big deal. Free room is a free room. So um, we got up the next morning and I go into the bathroom and I see in the tub of the bathroom a baby roach crawling around. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And I walk back out and I'm starting to get ready and I see in the mirror a roach going up the side of the wall behind me that was a little bit more grown. And I was like, no. So I killed it. And then as I killed it, I looked on the floor. I saw another baby roach going around. And I'm like, okay, mm-mm. We gotta get. And I was like talking to my girlfriend and my friend, and I was like, I don't know about staying here. And they were like, my friend was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I felt something crawl up my arm last night.
Mm,
Made it even worse to sleep. So I can go get another room and we can stay somewhere else." And we were like, "Deal."
yeah.
So he got a room at a Days Inn somewhere else, and I went back to the check-in and was like, "We're checking out early. There's something that came up," and they were like, "Okay." So we
Did you
booked it out of there.
mention the issues just so you didn't get charged for like the next night?
I didn't care.
I got you. Yeah,
I
just wanted to
really
get
don't
out of
think.
there.
I
Yeah,
don't think that they were going to. They didn't seem like a place that was going to refund me.
I got you.
Um, and I didn't really want to like worry about it
Yeah,
because the other room that our friend got was also $100. So I was like, you know what, we'll call it even.
yeah.
Um, so that was my experience. Always look at reviews. Lesson to everyone: look at reviews.
Oh yeah.
Because not when we look down like the row of doors where we could see on the other side of the building, there's a bunch of lawn chairs and other cars and like kids coming in and out, and I'm like, people are living here.
Yeah.
Like, we gotta go. um
Yeah, that's the thing is like for hotels, I don't have a fear of roaches. I obviously don't want them to be there. I think that's everyone has that consensus. I'd not like bugs to be in my room that I spent $100+ on.
Right.
Um, if I see one roach though, I hate that I saw that roach, but in my mind I'm like, okay, it's one roach. It could have just got in here.
Hmm.
If I then see another roach at any time during my stay, then it's, oh, this place has a roach problem. I don't want to stay here anymore.
Yes.
These things, not just the roaches, whatever else, it's going to crawl on my arms.
Hmm.
I've dealt with, I don't know if it was a roach or whatever. I was at a summer camp chaperoning like 2 or 3 years ago. I was in a cabin. It's 3 a.m. or whatever. I've been asleep, and I wake up just kind of suddenly, like oh. And as I'm waking up, I feel something like crawling on my leg, and like I'm still out of it. I'm like, I was just like trying to brush it off. It's pitch black, so I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
That's the terrifying part.
Yeah.
Had I seen it, yes, it would have sucked. But not seeing what it is, and also being so sleepy where I just brushed it off to where it's still
Now
out
this
there.
is somewhere.
It's not dead. And then I don't know if it was the same thing. I woke up, or I either woke up or I was falling asleep to another thing crawling on me. It was probably the same thing. But yeah, no. If there's more than one roach
Hmm.
in the room, I'm sorry. I'm going to Karen out. I'm not going to like argue. I'm not going to like argue with the people. I'm not going to be like
Right.
that. I'll just be like, "Hey, this isn't working out for me." Especially if it was a con, like it's like I got to be top of the game tomorrow morning. I need some sleep, and
Hmm.
this I'm not going to be able to sleep.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
just
gonna be
imagining
problems.
something's going to crawl on me at any moment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first like this is probably the first bad hotel I've ever been in my life. We've been into a lot of them when I was younger, but my parents were like not like super rich, but well off enough to get like a decent room,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they probably didn't rely on apps to give them accurate information back then, so that wasn't a thing. They probably actually read reviews. Um, but yeah, don't go to Roadway Inn in Enterprise, Alabama, unless unless you have something shady to do.
Yeah, no, for me, if it's 2 or 3 star hotel, which is usually what I'm staying at, if it's a con, I'm doing the name brand stuff,
Hmm.
the Hilton, the Best Western, maybe if it has good reviews. Like those are the things I lean
Yeah.
towards, because those can have issues, but I've never had an issue at a Hilton
Hmm.
or any of those type of hotels to where it's like, okay, they at least keep some form of standard compared to the hotel you're talking about.
Yeah. No, no standards here, which it was very strange. I think that they must have had some like they probably had uh like ex convicts or something working there. Um, I won't go into it. It's we will we will move on.
All of this
But
stuff will be in a book Austin does in a couple years.
yeah. um, so next thing I wanted to go into is the Kickstarter has launched. It's my very first one. And I'm already feeling something of a like I should have maybe lowered this. I don't want to be a negative Nancy. It's 3 days in. It's like chill out, Austin. Um, but I was feeling like the first by now, first 2 days, 3 days was going to be like a pretty good like chunk of it, which we got over 20% now. So that's like a good chunk. Um, but to me, I'm starting to feel like I had kind of an illusion of an audience rather than an actual audience.
Mm,
And I do have a lot of people that are going to back it. I can say with confidence there's going to be at least $500 probably worth of people that I know are going to back it that have not yet done it.
yeah, yeah.
But I thought by now I would have had a few more very, very organic fans, like people that were at the conventions coming up to me telling me that they loved it, that they want more of it, and they want to, they bought this, that, and the other. So that's kind of what I was expecting. But again, I don't want to be too down about it. We're not very far into it, and I'm going to be positive.
Yeah,
But
things can always shift, but I do get what you mean. I've been there before, especially with like it's like, oh, like you feel like it's like what you said, like there is an audience that will buy it. There's an audience for you and your stuff, but like there's an audience that I know they're going to buy it, whether it's social media or
mhm,
interactions with people. Like I'm not expecting high school friends to buy my book, but there's a couple that I'm
mhm,
like, hey, like I could see them. I'm not trying to sound like selfish or anything, but it's like I could see them like backing this, supporting me because
right.
they know I do the same if they have anything going up or whatever. Um, and then sometimes that doesn't happen, and it's like, oh, it hurts a little bit. I'm still friends with you, but that kind of
Yeah,
hurt.
yeah. Um, and I understand that maybe the economy has a lot to play into it, but that's why we put in these very, affordable tiers at the bottom. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so,
And I'm not trying to like disparage anyone if they're going through money times, but yeah, like even if like obviously there's people who love comics and want to read the comics, and I'm not just talking about your
mhm,
comic, my comic as well. If I'm doing a Kickstarter, um, even if you don't care anything about comics or anything like that, like you might not even read it, but like you know the person and you like them and you just want to see them like keep going forward, like that's the way to do that is either, if you have no money at all, sharing links and stuff on your
mhm,
social media and stuff like that, that helps a ton if you have no money. If you're strapped on cash but you want to help out a little bit, like digital tiers, Like digital tiers are the cheapest ones. Or if you're like, I don't want anything, I just want to help this person and their project because they've got a passion for it. There's always the donate without a tier thing at the
Yeah.
top. You can do that. I'm not trying to disparage anyone or anything, but it is one of those things where you have people say, hey, like, and again, I'm not directing this towards you. I'm not trying to make Austin feel sad. I felt this. Other Kickstarter
Yeah.
creators have felt this as well. Um, but you have people who have said in the past or have said like, hey, I want to like support you. Like, how can I do that? And like, once they say that, we're like, well, what you can support is like backing this Kickstarter. And then with some people, it's 50-50 on if that
Yeah.
ever happens. Give it time on the people you know will back it, or if people are like, I don't know if I'll have the funds this week, I might have it next week or something. Nicely kind of encourage / remind them that like your credit card doesn't get charged till this is over.
Yeah.
Like it'll be a month before your credit card gets charged. So like if you know for sure you're getting paid next week and you're going to back it, what would be great, since you know you're getting paid, go ahead and back it. And then that's also another thing. If something comes up before the Kickstarter ends, like you can always pull your pledge. But like pledge, if you know money's coming, go ahead and pledge. You're not going to be charged for a month basically till the Kickstarter ends. And that helps us as creators because that helps traction on the Kickstarter. When the Kickstarter's moving, it just helps it kind of.
Yeah.
Not entirely getting in like the featured pages on Kickstarter and stuff, but just it just helps
Get
that
eyes on it,
momentum.
I think. Like
Yeah.
Because I think it shows like the more funded ones closer to
Yeah.
the top.
It'll show the ones that are like last 48, 72 hours, as well as the ones that are like nearly funded or something like that.
Well, I'm glad that that you felt those the same.
You're not alone
some
in
situations.
This. Yeah. The crucial thing is, and I'm sure you've already done this, reach out to any friends or family that might want to help support you in this in any way. Even if they don't have money, if they're able to share a link or something to spread the word, as well as if like with some of the channels you're on, like the next couple weeks or whatever, with someone like Katie, you can ask her this if you want, like after the show, but see if they have any other connects in terms of shows you could be on, or if not shows, just like people who would help push the book kind of.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with a lot of the YouTube comic people is they are very supportive of indies. Not all of them. There are some that only focus on Marvel, DC stuff, but there are a lot that love all that stuff, but they understand the grind, the hustle of indie comics, and they appreciate indie comics, and they want to see it succeed. So, yeah, just keep going with it. Reach out to friends and family. See if there's other people like through someone like Katie or whoever who can plug you in with others to help spread the word. But yeah, I think I know by the end you're going to meet your goal. I just understand it can be a headache when it hasn't been the first week or the first half of the campaign, and you're stressing at the halfway mark of the campaign where it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm halfway funded. I need this done so I can
Like,
stop
so and so
stressing.
said they would pledge, and I don't see them in there.
Yes, and that's another thing is like, yeah, don't hound people on like every day regarding them saying the
It's
pledge.
just friendly
But like,
reminders every
well, I was about to
few,
say
like
like
once a
at
week.
least once a week. At least once a week. I do that. I do that with some of the YouTube people who have said they'd pledge. And I'll just be like, hey, like, just a reminder, there's only 10 days left.
Yeah.
If you want the book, you better
And I feel like a
hurry.
lot of people really need the pressure. Like I feel like a lot of people
Yeah.
need the like, oh, there's only 3 days. I gotta do it.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, well, that's part of the upswing on the last few days is that pressure. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that I need some momentum before that though, so
Yeah,
that
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
upswing really goes all the way through.
Yeah.
But
Because you don't want to rely on the last 3 days because the project can get funded in that last 3 days. Me personally, mental health and stress and all that, I don't want to deal with that though. That's too
Mhm.
much anxiety and stuff. I'd rather try to get funded the first half of the campaign. Doesn't always happen, but I'd like to get funded the first half. That way, the second half, I'm still doing all the stuff I was going to do anyway, but now I can just breathe kind of.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen. So,
Well, I appreciate that talk. All right, I've got a question to ask that's a derivative of what we were just talking about, but what's your time looking like right now?
I'm good. I'm good till 4.
Okay. So with the audience, the actual audience versus perceived audience, to you, how did you go about making an audience? And I feel like I probably asked this very, very early on, but for as a webtoon or a webcomic creator, I'm trying to use social media with the content to push an audience. So as you as a print exclusive kind of creator, where all your stuff is not really posted online in full, excuse me, how did you figure out how to accumulate an audience for your first Kickstarter? How did you feel like the tides were right to try a Kickstarter and have it succeed?
Really, I'll first mention my very, very first Kickstarter. Tail end of 2020 failed. My very first one failed. And it was I Kickstarter page looked good, had a trailer, had all this stuff. I just didn't know marketing at all. And honestly, like none of us still do, even if you're 5-10 Kickstarters in, it's always changing. You're always having to change your tactics and stuff. But yeah, that one failed just because I didn't know marketing. I waited like I didn't prep people like friends and family. Like that's friends and family aren't even like 25% of the funds on my Kickstarter. But I mean, like, even if it's 5-10% of the funds collected, hey, that's still 5-10%. That still helped get me to the goal or stretch goal or whatever it may be. I didn't tell those people about it before the Kickstarter. I didn't tell them like a month before. I didn't tell them a week before. I didn't tell them 48 hours or 24 hours before. I didn't tell them the day it launched. I didn't tell them till like a week into the Kickstarter. I was like, hey, I've got this thing I'm trying to fund, my very first comic. Come on, help me. And it was Dismay Avenue #1 is what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it essentially crashed and burned, as well as, because this will tie into the second Kickstarter, really what I'll call my first Kickstarter, because it's where I actually knew anything about doing a Kickstarter, running a Kickstarter. I also didn't know any people that would review the book. I didn't reach out to any YouTubers or anything. I didn't know any YouTubers or anything with that first Kickstarter, to where like it didn't reach the goal. Um, but I was still driven to do it again. And then I had Gallows Man, the first issue of Gallows Man, that Kickstarter. And beforehand, it was, for me, when I'm doing a Kickstarter, I like Kickstarters. I also hate Kickstarters because there's so much that goes into it. But for me, with a Kickstarter, I'm doing stuff specifically for the Kickstarter like 3 months in advance in terms of reaching out to shows. You don't have to reach out 3 months in advance for most shows. There are some where they book out months in advance, but at least month, couple weeks in advance, reach out to shows. But I was reaching out to shows, didn't know any of the people at all. That's the thing. But I just wanted to try to get some traction from anyone that would have me, essentially. And I also reached out to review sites and stuff like that, get them to review it. And it worked out. Like I was on one of the shows was Chamorro Cinema. His new YouTube name is Nerdtastic News. I'm always going to call him Chamorro Cinema, though. That's what I know him as. But Manny from Chamorro Cinema, he was like the first person I did an interview with and all this stuff. And like, I felt very like welcomed. And he helped plug me with like a few other people, because Manny, he was the first person I knew that was a part of like the PCP army, like the pop cultures philosophy. Like Robbie has his channel, then there's like all these other channels that are like a collective. It's called like the Bad Batch Army, essentially. But under like the PCP umbrella, it's confusing. So there's a bunch of channels,
just like a comic universe.
Yes, essentially, yeah. Robbie has his own universe, but there's all these other channels, and Manny helped me get connected into that kind of, and reaching out to those other people, and then through the next Kickstarter and the next Kickstarter, I'm finding more YouTube channels. I'm still doing stuff with like some of the PCP people. I'm also reaching out to other sectors of the comic YouTube realm, because it's insane. It's all over the place. I'm not saying the comic YouTube realm has clicks. I'm not saying that, but there's like section over here, a section over there, a section over there.
Is it like kind of territorial, or like
not entirely like, territorial. I think it's like just
regional.
That could play a factor. I don't know how much that would play a factor with it being online, but that could be a factor of it. In terms of like them all meeting up at cons and stuff like that could play a factor. But yeah, it was just something I learned along the way of making all these connections, and honestly, like the getting in on the YouTube and podcast people stuff has helped the most. Thank you for anyone that's like been on my Facebook and Instagram from day one, before YouTube and all that stuff. If I'm being honest, though, the audience really came from exposing myself on all these other people's platforms. That's where my audience came. Yes, there are people, maybe 20% at most. 20% at most came through just naturally Facebook, Instagram. But once I was on the YouTube stuff, people were slowly pouring in terms of an audience. And then now, like people do still come through Facebook and Instagram, but it's because they heard about me on this podcast, or saw me here, or saw me there. I enjoy doing the podcast and the YouTube shows and stuff, but it's just can be tiring sometimes. But you just have to spread yourself out in terms of exposure, kind of.
Well, I wanted to thank you for all the wonderful people that you got me connected with. Um, it's a hiccup that I get to avoid for my first Kickstarter. I'm not sure, maybe in the future I'll be able to plan a little bit more ahead with these appearances on other people's channels. But I really appreciate what you offered to begin with, and hopefully a little bit more will stem. A few more connections can stem from that. Um, and again, it was very funny. I got connected with Robbie very organically because his personal friends found me at a con. They enjoyed my stuff and they asked me to come over. They're like, "You need to meet Robbie." I was like, "I don't know who this Robbie person is." And then I step into his house and he just had walls of movies, walls of figures and toys, and um, a bunch of posters and LED lights. And um, I was like, huh. And then Robbie comes over and he's like, "Hey, welcome." And he like shook my hand. And I was like, "You're that guy." So that was just a stroke of really good luck and blessings. So I'm really excited to be on his show. I'll be a part of the well, I won't be a part. We're going to record on Friday, and then he's going to put that in on the Rock and Robbie Live on the Sunday show. So I'm very excited about that. Um, and I'm very excited to see Katie tonight, and I'm very thankful for the help that you've given me, Brandon. Um,
Yeah. There's something I was going to mention, but I can't remember. It could have been game changing. No, I don't think it's that.
This actually could have accounted for 50% of your
This
funding.
will actually get you $2,000 within 24 hours on your Kickstarter. No, I can't remember what it was. Maybe no, I don't think this was it. But yeah, this wasn't it. But I will briefly mention like TikTok did help me
Yeah.
some. Like the past two Kickstarters I've done, because at that time engagement was good on TikTok.
Mhm.
Now the algorithm's all screwed up on TikTok. I don't know
Yeah.
how viable it'll be on my next Kickstarter, but in the past two Kickstarters, I've gotten at least for each Kickstarter, at least 3 or 4 backers through the Kickstarter. It's not much, but it's like, hey,
Hey, yeah.
and also it's like something I can directly see. Like I see their username and then I see their Kickstarter name, and it usually matches up or is close. And it's like, oh, that's clearly this person.
Yeah.
Whereas like Facebook, I don't know who the hell is like backing Facebook. Maybe it's helpful,
Mhm.
but I can't make that correlation. I can't see that like, oh, like 10 people went through Facebook and backed it, sort of thing.
Right.
But I don't know.
Well, what I wish that I had was some kind of feed of people that kept a thumb on the pulse of TikTok algorithm, and they would just put like, okay, so the hashtags you want to avoid are these hashtags, and you want to input these hashtags, and you also want to avoid saying this word and this word in your in what you say and or what you type, and and something like that. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like there has to be like a Facebook group or a TikTok group or a Discord or something where
it probably is.
creators like have that, like, okay, this week TikTok installed this difference or this terms of service change, so it has changed XYZ. So you want to do this to increase the potential you'll be seeing.
Yeah.
And because it's obviously changed, because I was going, at the highest I had like 1,000 like 2 or 3 times on a few videos, and at the lowest 250. Now I'm struggling to get like 30.
100. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, and like the stuff I've been posting lately, I guess doesn't really help because it's not entirely the content I posted a year ago. But even then, a year ago, I was posting the same stuff, and I saw the drop off to where once we started the Dismay Comics podcast, me and Tio, I was like, I don't care about what the algorithm does or doesn't. It's all random.
Yeah.
It's all random. I'll just post what I want to post. It's out there. 5-10 people like it. That's good. At least I have it and I can always look back on it, sort of thing.
Well, that's a really good attitude to have, Brandon, but I don't have that. I want to figure it out. I was addicted, Brandon, and they took it away.
These are all like me and Tio doing the podcast and all that stuff, even because we'll get clips on YouTube that'll do hundreds of views, and then podcast episode, most it'll do is like 50 views, that sort of thing. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'll just hold these off. I can go back to these one day, see what old Brandon was like, or my children can go back and they'll be like, oh my gosh, Dad is just as insufferable. He's even more now that he's an old man, but goodness. So
I actually went back on one of my videos earlier where I was doing like a stream and draw, and I was like going through the video like, how long am I going to be on this damn panel? It's one panel. Do it, Austin. Get it done. Dang. So at least I feel like I have grown in the sense of my efficiency in creating a comic.
Yeah.
You know, because you think about it sometimes, like maybe I should clear out some of these archives and you know, be done with it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, that was fun to go back on and laugh at myself.
Yeah. It's nice to go back. Sounds. I'm not trying to sound bad, but like, and this isn't directed at you. This is directed at any of us that have the social media stuff or YouTube videos or podcasts or whatever. It's our narcissistic scrapbook. We can always go back and look at it and have those memories, or the narcissistic home videos.
I am so much better now.
well, like how our parents or people we know, they have the home videos of the kids, and you can of you as kid, and it's like, oh, like oh, that's how I was or whatever. And now you have this thing where like you can go back and you're like, oh, this was me in my 20s or whatever.
Yes, it's yes, the developmental curves. And it's sometimes funny to think that there's times beyond that. Like as far as an artist, I'm looking at what I did before and I'm like, I'm not doing it very fast. And it's not all that great. But even before then, it was even worse. And it was even worse before then. So
one thing that's beneficial for me is like I keep, in terms of writing, I keep notes, like a notepad on my phone with all the ideas I've had, and it's 6-7 years of just collecting these ideas. Recently I went back, scrolled to like some of the first ones, like the 2015, 2016, 2017 stuff, and almost all of those ideas suck in my eyes now. Back then sounded great. In my eyes now, they suck. And that does suck because it's like, oh, that's less ideas. But it's also good because it's like, oh, I've developed more as a writer. Like,
yes,
that's good.
Yes. All right, Brandon. I think that it's about time that you have to go. And if we have done a wonderful podcast. Again, I'm Austin Light with American Demon Comics. I have a Kickstarter going on right now until July 11th of 2024. So it is at indie-comic.com. So please go pledge. And I am joined with...
Yeah, Brandon Ingram, Dismay Comics. Stuff is happening eventually. That's like with any of the comics I make through Dismay Comics. The end page has all the stuff coming soon. It says coming soon. Then in parentheses, it says eventually. That's my stuff right now. Eventually it'll come out and keep updated. Facebook, Instagram, this podcast, whatever.
Well, a good way to get into Brandon's brain and a good way to support Brandon is to go to his YouTube channel that he has brought up with Tio in the ideas and the reviews and all that they go over. Is very fun to listen to. So remind everyone again what that YouTube link or URL would be or name.
Yeah. Essentially just look up Dismay Comics Podcast and it'll pop up. I'm pretty sure that's the YouTube channel name. That sounds bad. I don't know. Pretty sure it's either Dismay Comics or Dismay Comics Podcast. If you look up Dismay Comics Podcast, it'll pop up.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for joining me today again. And I will catch you again in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
See ya.
All right. Take care.